Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now for Christmas, my two bosses got me this Stanley Tumbler. I had never had one before, and so as soon as I got it, I started looking into ways that I could embellish it. Well, the thing that really caught my eye was that you can make these toppers for it out of acrylic. So that's what I'm going to do today. Now, I designed my own toppers after looking at different types on Etsy. I cut them with my X-Tool P2 laser, and I started with just wood. And I have all these blanks that weren't quite right, and I kept just barely adjusting it. I had 3 different types of lids to work with, and I did 4 designs for each lid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one for this 30-ounce quencher. I'm going to make one for this 30-ounce without a handle, and the lid on it is slightly different than this lid, so I had to adjust my toppers. Then I also have this 40-ounce quencher that I'll use to make a topper for. This one's mine, this is a daughter of a friend of mine, and this is a friend of mine's. So I had to borrow some to be able to make all these different things. Now what I'm using to make these today, it's a product from PYD. I bought this off of Amazon, and you get 4 sheets of a sublimatable acrylic. Let me show you what one looks like. Now, it has a protective coating, so you do have to take that off of both sides, but the main part of this is actually a clear acrylic. I don't know if you can tell that. And then it has a white sublimatable coating on it. So I'm going to show you how I set these up to cut with my X-Tool, how I set them up to sublimate on them, and I'm going to give you a lot of tips and tricks along the way. So if you're interested in seeing this content, stick around and let's get started. Now the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you the cut files. This is what I'll use to cut the acrylic using my X-Tool P2. Now that's a CO2 laser, so I can cut white or light acrylics with it. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to cut this shape, and this daisy shape out of my white acrylic. Now these are shapes that I made. I looked on Etsy and I found the most popular styles, and so I started from scratch and I made these designs. For my 4th design, I'm actually going to cut this out of black acrylic. And the reason I'm going to do that is because diode lasers can cut black acrylic, but they can't cut white acrylic. And I want you to see what you could do with that. I'm not going to cut this exact one, but what I did is I took this shape, I typed the word Marilyn, I made an offset of the word Marilyn, and then I welded the offset to this topper, and that's what I'm going to cut. Then I'll use my Cricut and I'll cut some adhesive vinyl for the word Marilyn. These other 3, we're going to sublimate on those. So let me show you what I'm going to sublimate on top of those. For the no handle tumbler, I'm going to print this Maggie. For the 40-ounce tumbler, I'm going to print this Angela. And then for the 30-ounce with the handle, I'm going to print this. So now that you know what we're doing, let's go ahead and open the X-Tool Creative Space. And I'll show you how you set these up. All right, get it so you can see everything. So now what I need to do is I need to bring my shapes in. So I'm going to go right up here to Image, click on it, and then I have my cut files right here. Now I'm cutting 4 of those 5. I haven't figured out how I can select multiples at one time. So what I do is I click on one, I say open, I go back to Image, let's click on the next one. That's one I want to cut. Go back to Image, and that's the 3rd one I'm going to cut. Let's see, I'm not going to cut that one, so let's go right down here. Okay, now I noticed it gave me some type of warning on this one, but I can see it's fine. It had to do with the text that I added onto the top, or the offset of the text that I added onto the top, but that looks fine. Okay, so before I go too far, I want to let it know to ignore this, because what I'm going to cut first are these 3 shapes out of the white Sublimation acrylic. So I'm going to click on this one, and right here I'm going to say ignore. Then let's go ahead and click off of it and just click on the background. Now I can select my material. So I'm going to use this 6mm white acrylic setting. So I'll click on that and it knows the thickness. Now I need to tell the X tool what I'm going to do for each of these shapes. So I'll click on this one and the default is score. I'm going to move it to cut and then it sets your power, your speed, and the number of passes for you. Now you can select that for more than one shape at a time. Let's click on those, move those to cut, and the settings are there as well. Now for some reason this daisy one came in really large and it keeps doing that every time I try to do it. I don't know why, but I do know the height of it is 3.2. So with the proportions locked, I'll type in 3.2 and hit enter. All right, let's do a reality check. This is set to ignore. This is set to cut. That is set to cut. And that is set to cut. And then my material, when you click off of it, you can see it is white acrylic. Now, once I've cut these white pieces out, what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll ignore these, and then I'll change my setting to this 3mm black acrylic. But I have to wait until after I do the white ones to do that. We're going to watch the white ones cut. I'll change out the acrylic for the black acrylic, and we'll watch it cut. Then I'll print out the images, and then I'm going to meet you right back over at the table. What I need to do now is I need to turn on my X Tool P2. I need to vent it out the window because I don't have the filter for it. And then I'll show you how you set these up on top of the acrylic to get them ready to cut. Now my computer recognized it on its own. If it didn't, I could have clicked up here where it said to connect the machine, but I didn't have to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh. There we go. I was going to say, I know there's more acrylic in there than that one little strip. Now remember, we're not even cutting this one. It's set to ignore. When I clicked on it, ignore popped up. So let's just move it off. We have my daisy. We have the more rounded shape. Let's see if I can get those together. I think I can probably get them to both fit there. And then it's hard to see, but the other one's up here somewhere. There we go. Let's move it on over too. And I'm going to move this further out of the way. Now, to make sure that you are set up really nicely and you're not accidentally cutting off the material, I can go right here to capture close view, click on it, and then I can take a picture right up here in the corner. Okay, so it's giving me a better view, and I see that I can move it up a little bit. I'm just using the arrows on my keyboard to do that. And then I'll move it over to the left just a little bit as well. Let's go ahead and do capture close view again. And this time, let's click right here. And I'll move this one over to the left. And let's see, can I move it up a little bit? I think I can. I want to look right here just to make sure that I have enough acrylic down there. Okay, that looks fine. Now, can I move this one down into here? I don't want to risk it. Let's go ahead and just put it right up here. One more time, I'll capture close view. And that looks fine. It is a little bit close, so I'm going to move it down just a tiny bit. I love that you have two cameras in there. You have your main camera, and then you have this camera that's on the print head area, so you can really get a close view. All right, so at this time I'm ready to process it. You click right here. Then it gives you a preview, and you say start. Now, because this has to cut very slowly, they want you to make sure there's no wood or anything else in there that you could set fire to. And so what I did is I pulled that crumb tray out that had some wood pieces on it. I threw those away, and now we're safe. I have to acknowledge that I saw that warning, so I'll say OK, process. And now I just need to go over and push this button on top of the X tool to have these cut. So we are finally ready for the exciting part. The part that is the real wow factor, or at least I hope it's the real wow factor. I'm going to go ahead and cut these apart. And I designed these using the cut file, took the cut file into Inkscape, found a background that I liked, did a slight offset of the cut file, and then I used the offset to clip, that's what it's called in Inkscape, to clip this shape. Then I added Maggie on the top and a white offset of Maggie behind the black word Maggie. Now, if you really want to know how I did it and you want to see it step by step, let me know. I'd be happy to do a quick video, but since you are going to be designing these differently than I did, I didn't want to bore you with another 20 minutes of video. Now, I've already cleaned 3 of these 4 toppers. When you take them out of the laser, they are going to have a little bit of, there's that rose gold vinyl again. Let's get rid of that once and for all. So when you take these out of the laser, you can see on the back, there's some things you need to clean off. This back side is where the sublimation coating is, so you need to make sure that's cleaned off. Now, you don't want to get any alcohol on these, so I'll put those way to the side. All I'm going to do is spray some rubbing alcohol. This is 90%. And you're just going to clean that off. And it is that easy. Now, what you also need to do is make sure that this is thoroughly dry before you put your image down on it. Now, this alcohol dries quickly, so it doesn't take very long, but you just want to make sure it really is dry. Now, while that's drying, let me show you something else. I did some samples of this before I made any toppers. I just cut some little hearts. I have seen conflicting instructions on how to use this material. I've seen 120 seconds for 356 seconds, and I've seen 60 seconds for 356 degrees. So I tried both. This is the one that was only 60 seconds. And the shape of that heart stayed really nicely. There's the clear acrylic, and then there is the sublimation coating on the back. But the shape of this heart stayed really true to what it was. Now, the one that I did for 120 seconds, and I don't know if you'll see this, it started flaring out. I think what happened was it was melting, it was pressing down, there was a decent amount of pressure on it, and it made that side, let's see if I can do this, it made that side flare out. Also on the back, because it made it whiter or fatter or whatever there, the sublimation coating no longer covered quite all of the back. So I'm going to do it for 60 seconds. Hopefully they become vibrant enough. If not, I'll know the next time, bump it up to maybe 80 seconds. But for today, I'm going to do 60 seconds. And maybe I'll press one of these by itself first. That would probably be smart. Press one of these by themselves first to make sure that's enough time. Now, acrylic becomes very pliable. And so when you take your acrylic off the heat press, if you let it bend, it's going to bend. So what I'm going to do is when I take it off the press, I'm going to leave it on top of this flat surface, and then I have 2 ceramic tiles I'm going to put down on it and kind of press for a little bit. The other thing is I'm going to protect the pad of my heat press and the top plate of my heat press with a double layer of butcher paper. All right, let's go ahead and start with this one. Since this is mine, I see a little bit of fuzz on there. Let's go ahead and move that off. I'm going to flip it over. So this is the sublimation coating, and that is opaque. Then you can see the top, you're really just seeing through to the back. So the top is clear acrylic. So you need to have the sublimation coating down on your image. That's why you don't mirror it. There are very few times that you don't mirror sublimation prints, and this is one of them. However, when we actually heat it, we're going to flip it over so that the heat is on the paper. Hopefully that makes sense. You'll see when I do this. So the way I made my design was so that the design is slightly larger than the acrylic. That way you don't accidentally miss part of the acrylic. Okay, let me look at all sides. And if you do want me to do a design tutorial on this, I'll kind of show you how you make sure that's not going to happen. All right, let's move it over just a little bit more. And then what I want to do is I want to go ahead and put 2 pieces of tape on this. One of the pieces of tape is going to go over this hole. That way, if any of the sublimation ink comes through, it doesn't stain the top at all. I don't know if it would. I have a feeling it might. Then the other piece, I'm just going to put on this other end. And that's it. Now, I'm waiting for my press to get up to temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and tape the rest of these. Now, I have about 50 more degrees to go. So I might as well show you this one, this black one that you could cut out with a diode laser. All right, we'll go ahead and take this backing off. And then, just like I talked about earlier, when I made this cut file, I took the original just strip, and then I typed the word Maryland. I made an offset of the word Maryland, and then I welded that offset to the strip. All right, I finally found how it went. I had it upside down. So I'm just trying to center my vinyl inside that offset. And I hear that my heat press is up to temperature, so we'll move on in just a minute. All right, now I'm just going to roll this off. And that looks pretty darn cute. All right, let's see how this fits. So this is my tumbler. My bosses gave it to me for Christmas. And the first topper that I did, because this was silver, that's why I used that silver holographic vinyl. But I think this rose gold looks good with the maroon. So you just drop it down over, and center it up, and that's what you have. Just kind of a cute little thing. All right, we're going to do another one. Let me take that off. Let's go ahead and start with mine in case it isn't enough heat or not heated for long enough. Now, you don't want a ton of pressure on this because I think that helps aid in squishing that acrylic down. So I've loosened up the pressure quite a bit. I have my double piece of butcher paper there. And then I want this in the center. Now I do want to flip it over. You want to press on the paper side. So I have that about in the center. Let me move this so you can see it just a little bit better. And then I'm placing these other two pieces on top. I just want to protect the top platen and then this pressing pad. All right, we are ready for 60 seconds at 360 degrees. So just like I talked about, I'm going to move this whole pad out so I keep it nice and flat. And then here are my tiles. And the one that I have up against it is a pretty smooth tile. You don't want a lot of texture on the tile because that could embed into your acrylic. Okay, that's probably been about 15 seconds. Let me take a look at it, and then I can flip it over and look through the top to see if I think I need more time. And I think that looks pretty good. Look how pretty that is. Okay, so I have it up off the paper, and I can still see it's nice and vibrant. So I'm going to go ahead and let that cool off the rest of the way so that when I'm working with it, if it's still a little bit pliable, I don't bend it. Now let me look at this. Let's see. Do I think it got squished at all? I really don't. Should we go up to 80 seconds? Let's try it. Now, since I haven't done it at 80 seconds before, I've done it at 60, I've done it at 120. I'm just going to do one at a time. If it's too much, I don't want to ruin more than just one. Okay, so we're flipping it over so the paper side is up. Put it in the middle. Put your double paper over it. And then let me change this timer. Now that is set for 80 seconds. Let's go ahead and press it down. Now I'm excited to see how this one worked out, but remember first we put the tiles down. Now while those are sitting there, let's go ahead and take a look at this. There's the back. That's the sublimation coating that the ink went through so that you can see it from the top. Very cute. Now I've also made these out of just white acrylic. I'll show you here in a minute the comparison because there is quite a difference. So we'll just slide this one down and hopefully you see that really well and there's not too much of a glare. Very, very cute. Now let me look and see if I think it squished it. That doesn't look bad. I feel like it didn't get quite as good a pressure right there because I see a slightly kind of white area, slightly milky. What to do? Let's put it in for about 15 more seconds. Okay, now let me look. It's this side. I think the back gets a little bit better pressure than the front, so I'll put that at the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this for about 30 more seconds. I don't know that 15 would give it time to do much. All right, let's see if it looks any different. But I don't want to look at it yet because I want it to stay flat. Now, I don't know that this part is necessary since I did leave it flat, but I do feel better doing it. Okay, so I think that got it just a little bit better. I don't think it's 100% even in the coloring, but I think it looks great. And that is more an issue with how you're pressing it versus the material itself. The ones I made before I made on the HTV Ront, and it is very even pressure. It goes straight down. I didn't have that issue at all, but I wanted you to see the process, and it's sure a lot easier to show you right here on the table. All right, last one. And this one is one that I'm really excited about. I think that flower is so cute. So we'll flip it over. Put the butcher paper on top. And I'm thinking maybe I will turn this halfway through. So I'm going to go 40 seconds, turn it, and 40 seconds again. All right, hopefully that made a little bit of a difference. You could even turn it a couple of times. Hopefully that's good. You know what? This time let's not use these tiles. Let's see if it stays flat without them. I'm going to peek at it and see. Okay, that looks pretty flat. Now, without the coolness of the tile, it probably will take longer for this to cool off, so I'm going to wait a couple minutes. Now, while we're waiting on that, let's go ahead and peel off Maggie. So that's what it looks like from the back. That is the actual sublimation coating like we talked about earlier. And then there's what it looks like from the front. So cute. Now, you can buy these PYD blanks already cut for you, but since I have the laser, I wanted to go ahead and be able to make other shapes, which I will be doing. Also, the pre-cut ones, to me, they were a little bit pricey, but they're not as expensive as the laser. So if you have a Stanley cup and they have the ones that fit it, you could try with those. All right, so here is the Maggie tumbler, and I don't have a straw with it, so I'm just going to put mine down in there. There's the color of it, very pretty. My color doesn't match it perfectly. It doesn't even coordinate that well with it, but for now, that's what she gets. There it is. Now, on the Stanley tumblers, the center is supported. So if you have anything larger than that center, it's going to be a little bit wobbly. But look how cute that is. Really, really cute. Okay, that's still hot. Let me give it just a few more minutes and then we'll take a look at it. Now that's still warm, but let's take a look at it. That is cute. Very cute. And I don't see the uneven pressure on that one. Now that inside I used brown. So if you're thinking it's not very dark, it's because it's brown, it's not black. I love that. Now, one thing that I noticed, it looks like with the heat, that sublimation coating cracked a little bit. Let me see if you can see that. Do you see a little hairline fracture in there? Let's see if it affects it from the top side. I can see it a little bit from the top. I really can. I think it's still gorgeous. I don't think it detracts from it, but I definitely can see it. And that's just from the heat, I'm sure, making it kind of crack apart. That's all I can think of that it could be. My guess is that with that high heat, the acrylic maybe expands a little bit, but the sublimation coating doesn't. That's probably why it did that. And this is a very large one. Let me see if I see that on any of the others. But for now, look at that. I think Angela will love that. All right, let's look at Maggie's. We'll inspect it a little bit better. All right, I don't see any cracks on that one. And I don't see any cracks on that one. So that's good. All right, let's go ahead and put it on Angela's tumbler and wrap this video up. There are so many cute things you could do with this. So you know I'm going to have to play with more of these. Now don't forget, we also had this one. This is the one that I cut out of the black acrylic and then just put the vinyl on top of it. It is super cute too. And you don't have to limit yourself to just a skinny strip when you're doing the black acrylic. That's just what I did. But you could use this shape, cut it out of black acrylic, and then have a larger thing of adhesive vinyl on the top. You could do all kinds of things. You could use adhesive vinyl and put flowers on it, put the name on it. You wouldn't have to use all the same colors. You could get really creative, and even with the black acrylic, you could make some phenomenal toppers. Or, as I said earlier, you can order the blanks already cut by PYD. You get those through Amazon. I'll look for those links too. But since I had the laser, I wanted to go ahead and cut my own. Now, one thing I noticed as I'm looking at these, it looks like it didn't sublimate there. That's because that's actually in the image. There is a white kind of highlight inside that flower. So that is not from the sublimation, that's from the image. Now here's a topper that I did just on white acrylic. And it looks good also. One thing to note was when I did this, the paper stuck to it, so I had to wash off what paper was left on there. But let me compare the two. Also, this one is thinner, and so it was more apt to bend. So here's the difference. White acrylic, clear acrylic with the white sublimation coating on the back of it. They have a very different look. They're both okay, but I do prefer this one. And then that's what the back side looks like on each one of those. So that's that. And then also, I wanted to show you something. I talked about this one, that this white part up there, that was part of the design. So it had nothing to do with this product. Here's one that I did for white acrylic. So let me tell you, I forgot to tell you this. When you're doing it on white acrylic, you're doing it from the top, so you do have to mirror your image. And so that's why this image is mirrored. But see, you have that white in that flower right there. That's why it turned out the way it did. Now, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I know this was kind of a long video, but I just didn't want to leave out any information that I thought was important. I also wanted to show you different things that you can do with this same material. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully you're doing some crafting, but until my next video, bye-bye.